This is the exclusion story of her son Tom. Before getting into all things exclusion, let's start at the very beginning. Em and I met and fell in love. We got married and bought our first home together. We were very happy. We decided to adopt children. We were assigned a social worker and went through lots of home visits, individual assessments, a preparation group, and then a panel. After what felt like forever, we were approved to adopt 2 children. A couple of weeks later, our social worker found 2 boys that she felt were perfect. Em and I read the profiles and straight away agreed. Further meetings took place, and then we had to attend a matching panel made up of 20 people. We were so nervous. Thankfully, they too agreed we were the perfect match for each other. We began preparing our house for our new family, painting and organising the house. We sent photos of us in our house to the boys so that they would begin to get to know us. The time came to finally meet our boys. We met them at their foster carer's house and over a week built up time with them for all of us to get to know each other. Soon it was time to bring the boys to their forever home and begin life as a family of 4. The boys now had a loving family and we all lived happily ever after. Or at least that is what many people think happens. Sadly, that is not the reality. A new place to live means completely new surroundings, new smells, new tastes and new sounds. Tom found this very frightening. He began showing this fear through lots of challenging, or I prefer, distressed behaviour. His brain was being flooded with the stress hormone cortisol and he was suffering from attachment issues. He didn't trust adults because he had been let down by them so much. Coming to us was his 7th move in 2 years. It was a scary time for all of us. Soon it was time for Em to return to work, and I was then on my own with the boys. Tom was being very violent, which was so hard to deal with. However, I did lots of reading about attachment and had many a light bulb moment. I knew building a secure relationship for Tom was key. He needed to know I could be trusted and was there to help. Slowly, week by week, month by month, Tom became less afraid and more settled. This all changed though when he started school. He began showing his teachers the same behaviours to communicate that he was scared. He would hide under desks, run out the class and run around the school, or he would fight what he saw as a danger. The primitive part of his brain was taking over. This was causing him instinctively to use flight, run away, freeze and hide, or fight. He couldn't help it. This was how his brain was wired, but the school didn't understand this. As the weeks went on, and Tom got to know his teachers more, very slowly he began to settle. But sadly, a number of events sent him straight into a tunnel of fear again. Prior to starting school, we decided to change Tom's surname to ours. He was so afraid of being moved again, and this helped to give him a sense of belonging and safety. He had a job share in Primary 1, and only one teacher had been told. When he was given his homework folder, it had his birth name on it. He was petrified and was worried we were moving him on again. The school didn't understand why this would upset him. The class topic was called Granny's Attic, which focused on the history of your family. Tom was made to create a family tree. This forced him to think about his birth family who had hurt him. We were told this was a part of the health and well-being curriculum and could not be avoided. Something that really triggered a deep fear in Tom was an Irish accent, as his violent birth father was Irish. School knew this, but a learning assistant from Ireland was put in class to support Tom. This sent him into major crisis. We knew Tom was really struggling, so suggested a number of strategies. A calm down box. This would have photos from home of happy memories, calming music, stress ball and other fidget toys. We suggested a visual timetable just for Tom. That way he would know exactly what was coming next. We also suggested an egg timer to help prepare him for transitions in the day, something he found incredibly difficult. Sadly, school said no to all of these. Tom especially struggled leaving class to go elsewhere in the school. He was hyper-vigilant all the time, looking out for danger. That's what his past had taught him to do. When he was in class lining up, he was so scared at the back of the line. It meant that he couldn't see what was coming round the corner. He didn't know if danger was ahead. He needed to be at the front of the line. We spoke to school about this, but they informed us that this was a want, not a need. I wanted staff to be attachment aware, so I handed in lots of leaflets, articles, books that I could recommend. Each time the head teacher would flick through, saying that she and her staff had already read it, or that this was nothing new. I recommended what I see as the Bible of attachment. Inside I'm hurting. However, the head teacher was more concerned on the price of the book than what value this would add to the school. I attended countless meetings and each time spoke about attachment, early trauma and the effects this has on the brain. At one meeting, I was told as I walked in, "We are not here to discuss attachment issues. We are here to talk about Tom's behaviour." But what the school didn't understand was that Tom was a result of poor attachment. And this poor attachment led to the behaviour they were seeing. And this behaviour was communication, but they couldn't hear it. School were told that one thing that was imperative was to be curious and to try and work backwards to work out what triggers were for Tom. However, the school told me they didn't have time and that a trigger could be a red jumper for all they knew. The final descent that led us into the path of exclusion came when a teacher demonstrated a hold or restraint on Tom in front of me at home time. This sent Tom into major crisis. It was a trigger to his past where he had been pinned down before and beaten. He was having this done in school. At times, one adult held his arms while another held his legs to the ground. This was in front of his peers. In 1 week, 3 restraints were used over a period of 5 days. Tom was in crisis almost every day. He began crying at home, saying he didn't want to go to school because his teachers were hurting him. One day I was called into school and it was mentioned in passing that he had kicked his teacher 2 weeks before, and this had been recorded as a violent incident with the council. I wanted a copy of this report. I called the council for a copy and was asked which one I was looking for. I didn't understand. I thought there was only one report. However, I had the wind knocked out of me when I was told this was the 7th such report. These reports will be on his school record for life. Things continued in the same vein, and I was being called by the school almost every day. Tom was being given informal exclusions. I was to take him home each time. I disagree with any form of exclusion. Exclusion is rejection, and that had been the story of Tom's life. There was a school holiday, and Tom finally began to calm a little. However, first day back, there was no visual timetable in the classroom at all. I'd been told previously he didn't need an individual visual timetable because there was one for the whole class. He was then given a reading book that was called A New Home. You can imagine how frightening this would be for a child who was so scared about moving home. This sent him again into a major crisis. He received a call from the school and was asked to come in. When I arrived, I was told this time it was a formal exclusion. I expected that this would be for a day. However, I was told it was to be for a whole week. The council policy was that the length of exclusion was to relate to the severity of the incident. Tom had been throwing over tables. I didn't agree. A week should be given for this. However, I was told that the decision of a week had been made because the head teacher was heading on school camp for the week. By this point, we'd had enough. We sent a letter of complaint to the Director of Education. In fact, it was more than just a letter. There was 33 pages and appendices that included details of meetings that had been had and comments that had been made. We sent in another complaint, this time about the exclusion. However, a letter came back from the Director of Education with regards to both the main letter and the new one, agreeing with the school. He felt that the school had been exceptionally supportive. After the exclusion, there had to be a professionals meeting. We weren't allowed to attend this. It was only for people within education. However, we managed to get the social worker for the boys to attend. We were already considering moving schools, and so the head teacher from the potential new school also attended the meeting. She was told by the current head teacher that she wouldn't want such a child in her school and that he was extremely violent. It was also commented that I was an over-anxious parent and that all of Tom's issues were because of his home life with me. After the meeting, I received a phone call from the council. They said that the recommendation of the professionals was that Tom should remain at his current school. I was told that because he'd already had so many moves, I would be failing him as a parent to decide to move him again. I didn't know what to do. I cried and I drank wine. How could I send Tom back to a school where he was so afraid to go? Em and I decided we had to go with our gut, and we decided to move schools. We thought a new school would be a new start for all of us. Did we get our happily ever after? Not quite. The new head teacher informed us that the husband of the teacher that Tom was due to have was refusing to have his wife teach Tom because she was pregnant. At this point, nobody in the new school had even met Tom. They were basing their decision on what had been said by the previous school. We were told that the only option was to have the support for learning teacher taking the class when Tom was there. However, she only worked 3 days a week and she had other groups to teach, so Tom could only attend for a maximum of an hour per day over 3 days. That was 3 hours a week of education. This continued for a whole term. After the summer holidays, we expected that his full-time education would resume, but the school refused. We had no option but to get a lawyer involved to help fight our corner. Lawyers come at a price though. We had to use our savings, plus get help from family to pay the bill. The price necessary to get our child an education. We are now 4 years down the line. There have been at least 4 changes of head teachers since then. Finally, we have a fabulous one who truly gets it. She recently told me that as far as she is concerned, relationships are key, and she couldn't be more right. Adopted children need adults in schools who understand that. It is only then that they can even contemplate any form of learning.